So now let's introduce the third speaker of the session today, Navdeep, and he's going to talk about personalized email marketing campaigns.
Great. Thanks for being here, and I'm very excited to be a part of this session. Some very interesting talks that we've seen before. So this is joint work with Chirstian Wheeler, my colleague here at Stanford, and Pradeep Chintagunta from the University of Chicago. So emails are a very prominent channel of communication across people and also between businesses and their customers. So 9 out of 10 marketers use email marketing to distribute their content. It's definitely prevalent and being used. And 81% of small and medium businesses say that emails are primary source of customer acquisition for them. So it's not just a way of communication for them to put their content out, but for small businesses, it's probably the main tool of acquiring customers for them. And if you look at other statistics like retaining customers, this number is about 80%. So email communication between businesses and customers is important for the businesses and for customers also, because they receive a lot of communication through these channels. So the question is, how do managers optimize their email marketing? So what are they doing? What are their thoughts? So here are some thoughts from our partners. So the first one is from one of our partners who participated in this study. This is from Emiliano Galvan, who was heading the Mercado Libre's email marketing at the time we were doing the study. Now he's the CEO of Wonderman. So personalization can help in regards to email marketing, but it can also make customers privacy conscious. And this strategy could backfire, defeating its purpose. Conventional wisdom in the industry does not provide a clear direction in this regard. Right? So this is, of course, to introduce Mercado Libre, this is a company like eBay in Latin America with a very big scale. So each email that goes out to millions and millions of people. They followed, at the time we were beginning the study, they were following the standard templates in the industry, but this was their concern. Okay, so we don't know, we are using this data, we have this data, consumers are providing it, but how should we actually use it? How should we optimize the email marketing campaigns? Here is another quote from another company that we partnered with. This is from their president. They wished to stay anonymous. They sell worldwide, educational products, things like preparation for CFA, FRM related courses. So the president of the company, for them, email marketing is their primary channel of acquiring customers, just like the 81% statistic I showed you. So the president personally oversees the marketing operation. For them, the thought is email marketing is a primary acquisition channel. How do we maximize its impact? We try different propositions, discounts. What else can we do? We don't have much about new customers' interests to customize the message with relevant products. So this is a different situation. They're trying to acquire customers. These are not people who have been to their website and shown or given some information about their interest. These are very, very new customers for the company. So what do they do to maximize their email marketing? That is the question. So we had this conversation with the company, and they don't really have much information about the customers. It's only information that is quite visible from the email IDs, like the name of the person, the company where they are at, something about their location and stuff like that. So what can they do? Can it really have an impact? Can they actually improve their bottom line using this? So our question is, okay, what about personalization? Can you do something with the data that you already have? So this is the email, one of the emails that they were sending before we began our study. So a typical email ID for them would be, so they would acquire these email IDs, that's a big cost center for them. So it would be like name@thecompany.com or something like that. They would have a subject line, of course. And then, dear, this email is going to John. So dear John, and then a lot about the product. So this is a very pricey product. So the average price was about $1,000. and then a little bit about the product. And then, if this is not relevant to you, please unsubscribe, and we won't bother you going forward. So the question is, can you increase the effectiveness? Can you do something with using the information that you already have, even if you're acquiring new customers? Things like, okay, if you're already using the name of the person in the body of the message, if that does nothing, then why are you using it? If it is good, then why not bring it to the subject line? If you know something about the customer, in their case, they know the location because this is in-person classes that they're selling. So these are targeted to the location of the person. So they had the location along with the email IDs. So instead of saying, this email is in regards to the upcoming in-person class in your city, why don't you say in Sydney, because this email is going to a person in that location. Instead of saying the course is designed for professionals like you, the course is designed for professionals like you working in companies like IBM, if you know that this is an IBM email ID, things like that. So what will this do? Well, what can this do for the company? Now, the 2 point of views come in over here. The first one is what Mercado Libre had in the beginning, which is personalization, especially if you increase it, can raise privacy concerns. Maybe this can lead to a pushback. Adding customer specific information should not matter for understanding about the product. And this is what the other company's perspective was. What the information that they were personalizing in the beginning was mostly about the product, which we think the customers would care about the discounts, about price, which we think the customers should care about. What will this information really do? Can it really have a big impact? On the other hand, if we look at the psychology literature, consumers are very cognitively constrained. There are hundreds of billions of emails going on every day. The inboxes are flooded with all kinds of emails. In this cognitively demanding environment, maybe personalization can orient people's processing powers. Maybe it can orient their attention, these fast thinkers in terms of Kahneman's terminology. Maybe the fast thinkers will pay more attention to these messages, and this can help them stand out. So this is basically the trade-off that we really want to look at in this paper. So then why is email personalization interesting? First of all, if there is any impact for the companies that we are looking at, this impact is going to come at almost no extra cost. This is going to be absolutely free, zero cost, and any benefit would be for free. And if there are losses because of it, that is worth knowing if you're already using it. And if we can learn something about the mechanism, this would speak to what marketers do all the time, which is try to personalize all kinds of messages across all channels. And email marketing is especially interesting because unlike banner ads, unlike other channels of advertising or search ads, here we get a lot of information about how consumers are interacting with the ad message. We know if people are looking at it because whether or not they open the emails, we will see that in the data. We know if people don't like it, even if they don't buy. Some people on the margin may not like it. We will know if they unsubscribe from the email. We will know if people actually interact more. If they open multiple times, we will know if they actually respond positively because that will be recorded in the database. Okay, so because of these reasons, email marketing is interesting for us also to make a general impact. So with this motivation, we jumped into the first field experiment that we ran. So this is with the first company that was selling the educational products. For them, this is very crucial. They are trying to maximize the impact of emails to acquire customers, to generate leads for the sales team. So the first experiment we ran was, so you're using the name of the person in the body of the email. If it really is useful, that's why you're putting it there. Why don't you bring it up to the subject line and maximize its impact? And let's see what it does for your campaign. Okay. So the experiment is very simple. This is going to be very clear for the managers to take away. For group A, a randomly chosen set of email IDs from the campaign, about 33,000 of them, their email remains as is. So it goes the way they do it. For group B, which is 34,000 email IDs, we will just move and add the name of the person in the subject line in addition to the body. So we'll be repeating the name twice, once in the subject line, then in the body. For A, only once, which is in the body of the email. And both groups know if they open the email, they will see their name in it. Okay, so what do we see? We see that when we add the name of the person to the subject line, holding the message constant, the open rates increase. So more people are opening it, and that increases by 14%. Okay, that is a big impact for the company because more people are now getting to see their message. If we look at the actual metric they care about, what they want to get out of the campaign, leads increase by 31%. Okay, so just by adding the name to the subject line, their leads are increasing by 31%, and this is also statistically significant. Now, if more people are opening the email, we would imagine that some people are opening because they don't like it, or some people who were opening earlier without the email, who were unsubscribing the email, maybe will unsubscribe with the same probability. But what we see is, even though more people are opening it, fewer people are unsubscribing from the email campaign. And this is very telling for us about what this personalization might be doing. So we see that fewer people unsubscribe, even though more people open the email, and the unsubscription rate goes down by 17%. And this is statistically very precise. Okay, so what does this tell to the company, and what does this tell us for maximizing the impact? For the company, they jumped on this finding, right? So after seeing this, they also noticed, they got this feedback from the sales team that the actual quality of the leads is also very high. So they were getting more what they qualified as hot leads. So everything was good. And they, after that time, they never removed the name from the subject line. For us, this effect was very big in magnitude, right? So there is so much that the company is doing. There's so many things that they're doing. They are making the product, they are pricing, they're doing all these kinds of things. And this little change at zero cost is causing a 31% change in leads, and with zero opportunity cost of unsubscribe. So this could be too good to be true. That was our takeaway from this first experiment. So it seems like a win-win. Adding this personalization, the simplest thing, is improving performance. And we don't see any evidence, at least in observed data, of consumers reacting negatively, no complaints otherwise, and company immediately adopted this, this change. Okay. So then so at this point we paused, we took the slow thinking now that, okay, this is too good to be true. Is there something special? Is this a statistical blip? Is there, so running these experiments from experience, we know that sometimes things can go wrong here or there. Maybe nothing was caught over here. The next question is, are these effects actually transportable? If some other company does it, are they going to find similar direction of effects, even though the magnitudes change? Can we extend these findings? What can we say about this? Okay. Now, of course, the company we were collaborating with immediately adopted this, and they didn't. So one thing we did is we said, okay, can you do this experiment again for us? Because we really want to see if this replicates within the same setting, if this is a one-time thing, or if this replicates in other markets. But there was a huge pushback from the sales team because they didn't want to lose, they didn't want to remove the name from the subject line going forward at all. So they didn't want to have a control group going forward. So at that time, we took a pause. We said, okay, let's see if we can, because the effects were so big in magnitude, let's see if we can go to other companies and show them these effects and actually redo it. So we talked to multiple companies. Mercado Libre was an attractive option for us, and they were a very different setting because they were doing these campaigns to retain customers and to re-engage customers who were inactive on the campaign on their website. The setting was also different because it was more e-commerce. For them, the data was also provided by customers. They didn't acquire it from a third party. And so we went in to do this experiment with Mercado Libre as well at a very much bigger scale. We also did this with Stanford's executive education program. That's a good setting because it's a very, very established brand. The customers over there so Stanford sends out these informative emails about latest findings in research and something of interest to the target audience. So it's a very different setting. but a smaller scale. So their emails are way fewer compared to Mercado Libre, but worth looking at the effects there as well. So these things are there in the paper. I'm just going to show one of these right now, and then we can move on to what other things we did with this company. Okay, so this is our experiment with Mercado Libre. The experiment is going to be exactly the same as what we did. The difference is that the control group has, so now they don't have the email, but they used to have it in the past communications, and they get a lot of emails from Mercado Libre. Okay, so their worry is whether personalization is hurting them. So group one is going to have about 550,000 individuals with the name in the subject line. Group two is going to have the same body without the name in the subject line. Again, about 500,000 individuals. This is what we found. So even here, we see that now, of course, the open rate baselines are big. We see an increase in open rate with the name in the subject line. Their metric that they were looking for was clicks. Clicks increase also in the subject line. So their scale is big. So the relative effects are small, but statistically there, and again, they're not seeing any pushback from people who are getting their names in the subject line. So again, directionally very similar, win-win-win for Mercado Libre. We saw the same pattern with Stanford. In the paper, we did a meta-analysis to come up with the average effect size across these settings as well. But the takeaway was that there is positive, but there is no big loss that we see over here. Okay, so the patterns are very similar. We looked at other statistics in the data. So here's the question, okay? So if the name of the individual is doing so much, what can other attributes do for the company? If the name is orienting people's attention, can we use other things that the company has at the customer acquisition stage? So again, with our partner company, the education product seller, they had the location of the individual and the name of the company where the person worked, because this information is there in the email ID already. So what can you do with that information? So this is the experiment we did along the same lines. In condition A, so randomly chosen people, they have so the subject line is going to be the same. In the body of the message, we see that the aim, it says the product aims at adding significant value to professionals like you. In condition B, it says aims at adding significant value to professionals like you working in companies like the name of your company, IBM or USC, whatever company that you're in. Okay, so this is what we see. Here, we don't see an effect on opens. Opens are very similar, and that is expected because we are just making a change in the body of the email. Opens was still interesting to know, because one of the things all of these companies are worried about is whether the email clients are going to classify them as spam if they use this information, right? So we don't see any evidence of that over here. So at least here, we don't see that evidence. With the name also, we'll see another application. We don't see evidence of spam filters classifying them and throwing them in the spam folder. Now, for them, the big thing was the leads increased by 100%, right? So the baseline was small, but relative to without using, and they were not using this information before, their leads increased big time. So this is, again, a big change for them. And again, unsubscribes by using this are not increasing, they're actually decreasing. So some people saw the message, opened it, and unsubscribed without their company name, but with the company name, they chose not to unsubscribe. So there is some impact that this is having on them, which is positive for the company again. So we see with this information as well. Now, again, this is coming at almost no extra cost because they didn't have to gather any information. They just had to configure their email template to get this information, company information in there. And the leads are doubling, there are fewer unsubscribes. And this sort of comforted us, all these findings that, yeah, there is probably something big at the margin that we are looking at over here. Okay. Now, the question we asked at this point was, okay, is there any scope for more improvement? What can we do with this finding more? What can these companies do? And how can we extend this to other settings? What would be the mechanism over here? So here are some possibilities that we thought of. Okay, so one mechanism is that the way these emails lead to impact is, first of all, the customer has to notice the email, open the message, the inbox is busy, so they got to first look at it, open the message, read the message, think about the proposition, and then decide what they want to do with it. So maybe putting stuff in the subject line is just getting them to notice the email. But if this is the mechanism that should be going on, if some marginal people notice the email, at least the people who were opening before, their attitude should not change. If their attitude should not change, then the unsubscription rate should not decrease. So mechanism one has, cannot explain all of our data. Another finding that this mechanism cannot explain is the name of the company in the body of the email. This should say that this mechanism wouldn't predict any impact over there. Okay. So then there's this other mechanism based on Petty and Cassiopo's ELM model, elaboration likelihood model, which is personalized information makes people think about the proposition more carefully. So they elaborate the proposition more, they think about it more, they think about their experiences, more memories come to bear, and therefore they think about the proposition more carefully and therefore react to the message in a more thoughtful manner. So the effect could be over here, and this could explain the findings that we have at this point. The third mechanism is that maybe the personalization information is just changing people's overall attitudes towards the product, something like the liking towards the product or preference shifting or some utility shifting mechanism is going on. So mechanism 2 and mechanism 3 are going to have different implications for the company, because if mechanism 2 is going on, then this says that the personalized information in itself is not going to do anything. Repeating it again and again is not going to do anything if the rest of the message that the personalized information is orienting the customers towards doesn't really do too much for them. If the message is compelling, only then personalization is going to have an impact. So that is sort of an interactive effect that we want to go ahead and test and draw more implications and do more tests with that. So the next experiment is aimed to disentangle these two. So the idea is, if personalized information is increasing processing, then the other content is really what this personalized information is orienting your attention towards. So there should be an interaction effect, right? And the implication for the company is they could place the personalized information strategically next to the main punchline, where they actually give the main impactful information to the customer. So it has some implications for the company. On the other hand, if this is a preference shifting mechanism, which is mechanism 3 I talked about earlier, in that case, this is just a free gain of using personalization. We should expect some diminishing returns at some point, but this would say the willingness to pay would increase, and that would have some other indirect implications for the company. Okay, so this is the experiment we did with our main partner company. There are about 1 million individuals in experiment 5. So what we are doing over here is we have a 2x2 design. The first factor that we are changing is the name of the person repeated in the body of the email. Now remember that after the first experiment, this company would not they had a very strong feeling about it. They just would not change the subject line going forward. So this experiment changes whether or not the name of the person is repeated in the body of the email. Factor 2 is another piece of content that the company thinks is very impactful for them. In this particular case, we had multiple candidates for factor 2 contents that they would use. To maximize the impact, we picked the content which tells the readers that they could reply to the email and maybe they would be eligible for a discount, because this is a very pricey product, priced about $1,000. So 10% discount, 20% discount is a big deal. So factor 2 that we vary in this experiment is whether or not we mention in the email that you might be eligible for a discount. That is what we're doing here. So this is the 2x2 design. And so there are 4 different groups, each with about 300,000 email IDs. So group A, no name. So by no name, I mean the name is always there in the subject line, but the name is not repeated in the body of the email, but no mention of the discount. Group B, discount is mentioned, the name is not repeated. C, the name is not repeated, the discount is mentioned. And D, both of these things are there. Okay, and if the elaboration mechanism is going on, then we should expect the group B to be the main impactful group over here. Okay, so this is more precisely our manipulation areas. The subject line is always the same. What we are doing is somewhere in the body of the email. The idea is that some people open the email, they start reading it, and they would lose attention. So let's repeat the name of the person in the body, and then look at its impact relative to another line, which is, do reply to this email, you may be eligible for a discount. Okay, so the reason we didn't put a percentage discount over there was because we tested putting percentage discounts lead to the likelihood of you getting classified as spam or not. So we didn't want to put that number in there, to be careful with the design. So this is what we found. So we have the average leads, and we have leads conditional and open as well. Both of them are directionally the same. We find that repeating the name alone doesn't do anything statistically significantly. The point estimate says that repeating the name alone is actually leading to a decline in the name. The baselines are very small, so 9% effect is actually statistically insignificant. So we conclude that repeating again doesn't do anything for the company. Adding the discount alone, that is, as you would expect, it is leading for people to reply back and leading to more leads, about 21%. But when you add the name and the discount, and this group is the best among all the four, we find that there's a 57% increase in adding the name and the discount more. Now, again, very few people open these emails, right? So these a lot of these emails are being ignored. But if you mention the name alone, it is not repeat the name alone in the body, it doesn't have an additional impact. But if you repeat it next to a proposition, which is you might be eligible for a discount, that together effect is the biggest, which is our evidence, which is hinting towards the elaboration and likelihood mechanism. Okay. Now, if the elaboration likelihood mechanism is going on, this has other implications that the company used beyond our experiment. So they adopted this template as well. This led to some other discussions in the company. One of the things they did, which is not in the paper, they took these findings to their on-domain advertising. So they had their website, on the website they had a sign-up form. So the sign-up form would talk a little bit about the product, and it would say, greetings, and you can sign up to get more information. They use this information by using other contextual information they would have, like the location that they would get from the email, from the IP address of the person. And of course, the day of the week, they would say, happy, instead of, great day, they would say, happy Friday or something like that. And that also led to an impact for them over there. So they were using these mechanism findings in those manners. Okay. And we did more hypothesis tests, and the findings are the same. Okay, so what do we conclude from this? For us, the big thing was that at the margins that these campaigns are playing, a lot of the emails are ignored. People are cognitively limited; they can't pay attention to everything. So personalization works on that margin. This seemingly uninformative information. So all the information that we changed over here was free for the company to use. It was not about the product at all. It was about the customer in the email ID. And in all these cases, the companies already had this information with them. So this information can actually lead to an impact on the metrics these companies care about. A sizable impact really maximizes the implication of the product proposition. It leads to increased processing of the message. That's what our last experiment showed. And these findings extend across companies, and they increase with, they are present at scale as well. And then we used the fact that we had multiple outcome measures, and that's a benefit of looking at email marketing. We looked at opens, we looked at leads, clicks, and also into unsubscribes, and we saw that there was a decrease in unsubscribes and not an increase. Okay, so what did our partner companies say about this? This had a pretty big impact on the seller of educational products. So here are some of the quotes that they wish to remain anonymous here. They wrote a detailed letter that we circulated with the committee. So these findings had an impact beyond our marketing team. They caught attention of our sales team, who found the quality of the leads also improved. We extended these findings to using other data, such as which increase our top line and bottom line outcomes, and again, at almost no cost. Our website team, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, our website team has applied the same principles to improve performance of our on-domain advertising. The culture of experimentation is now a part of the team. And not just experimentation, it's about hypothesis-driven experimentation, where people think and try to learn from the experiments, not just the quantitative effects. So our investors also found it to be impressive. The investor rep on our board had a meeting with the research team and is looking to partner with the research team and roll out across portfolio companies. And this company is now acquired completely by their investors. So from Mercado Libre, the impact when you scale up from that one campaign that we had an experiment, the impact is huge. Several thousand more individuals view the email and hundreds more click on the email because of the mention of the name. This increase is just for one email. The effects direction is especially large in magnitude and also unknown for us. There is no flip side. If anything, using the recipient's email just decreased unsubscribing. This is a win-win for them. So this is some of the impact that these companies gave and provided us some feedback. Thank you. That's all I had in the presentation. Happy to take more questions and have more discussion on this.
Thank you so much. And I think Phil left a comment. So why don't you just start, Phil, with your question? That's a good question.
You're cold calling me, Lan. Hey, Navdeep, thanks for the presentation. Good to see you. One question I had that I put in the chat was, do you have a sense of how much of these effects are driven by spam filters, which I know for things like unsubscribe, that's a human action, I assume, although there might be some automated tools for that, but certainly opening emails and those things, these tests might be ways of getting around some of those filters potentially.
Yeah. So that is the unknown that a lot of these companies face when sending out mass email. Like, are they getting filtered out? Are they putting it something that's getting caught by these spam filters and classifying them, or the inbox, right? So when we did our first experiment, which was just about the subject line, that was one of the concerns we had. Maybe this is just all driven by spams. In that experiment, the reason what gave us hope and what got us to continue was the fact that unsubscribes were decreasing while opens were increasing. Right. So if you think that personalization is pushing these emails to the spam filter, opens should not increase. So that different directional effect had an impact for us. And in the later experiments, we had this in mind. And that's why when we made a change in the body of the email, the open rates being constant was our test, right? If personalization was classifying stuff into spam because of the filters, then we should see an impact on opens. And we did not see. We did see on some other tests we did a pre-test with putting in the discount percentage, for example, because we want to maximize power in our final experiment. Over there, we saw that if you put in, say, a 20% discount, you would see that Gmail would classify you as spam with a higher probability, not with 100%, but with higher probability. So we didn't use that. That's why we use text saying that you might be eligible for a discount. So feel free to reply. But that's a great point. And
it makes sense. And even if it is a clever way of subverting a spam filter, that's still good for the company. They want to subvert that. And so, but it just means that maybe it's more of a transitory effect until the spam filter gets smart again and can pick them up. Those would just be some of the things I'd wonder about. But everything you said, I agree.
Thank you.
And Rob?
So kind of building off that question, I have a few follow-up pieces. So one is, this is just me being curious, but how do you measure if the email is open? Is it like when the email is open, like an image loads or some kind of pixel fires, and then you can just log it? from like the company sending the email?
Yeah, yeah. So email opening is, at that time, that's what was going on. And all these major clients like, MailChimp and, they would fire a pixel if the email is open. That technology is evolving, and it's evolving with the way OSs are also. So for example, I think a year ago or so, Apple made some change in their email client where they would, it just made it hard for these other companies to track opens. So there's a cat and mouse game thing going on there. But at this time, that's what was going on.
Yeah, because
fire and,
yeah, because I was thinking of it in terms of like what my email does. Like my work email doesn't load images or anything by default, but like my personal Gmail does, which made me wonder. And I took a quick look at the full paper. I can take a longer look after, but was there any breakdown by like, maybe you were seeing more people with like Gmail accounts like being overrepresented in the test group with the name, or like business accounts or whatever were more represented? Was there some kind of variation? I'm not like,
yeah.
What types of populations were actually opening the email and engaging?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So what we saw is, so for example, our main partner company, that one, all the emails were work emails. So all of them were going to work emails. So there was no @gmail.com over there. At the same time, we don't know what client the company had installed. So we don't have that information. And there's variation across, maybe some across people. And of course, there's variation across different companies on whether they use Outlook or Gmail. And these have different defaults probably. And they also change over time. So
yeah, because like thinking about that, I was saying, if you took like the IBM example you had, and you saw that you had however many IBM people in test and control, like is the increase like within like an IBM company, or is it because it's like from another company, like I don't know, like Dell.com or whatever, like they're the ones who are now getting all the, like, is it
so
domain and stuff?
I see 2 points over there. One, I think because of randomization, if there are IBM people in control, there are IBM people in test. So this is within company as well. So this is an average from within company,
yep.
Right? And then we did not see any systematic heterogeneity explained by the company indicators. So it's not from one geography, because this company was operating in different kinds of markets. So we looked at whether US had a different effect than Australia versus Asia versus Africa, or Middle East. We didn't see any big impact across these things. Statistically detectable, there was variation, but nothing systematic on that front. That's something we looked at. Repeating the name in the body of the email, the main effect, of course, goes down, right? But then the interaction is what survives. So repetition is one heterogeneity that is systematic over here. But and at the margin that we saw, we didn't see any other systematic measures.
I don't see other hands. I have one more question, but I don't want to.
Go ahead.
So unrelated to my last question, something else I was thinking about that you had like on one of your very first slides that I was thinking about throughout was there any kind of like follow-up, maybe more qualitative research, but like on consumer perception, right? When I get emails that have like my name in them, I get a little creeped out. And like I know like there are companies that I'm already engaged with, like I know they know my name, like I know they have it. It's not like they got it in some weird way, but like was there any kind of discussion? Because I can imagine getting like an email, like a sales pitch, right? That I'm like from a company I've never heard of before. It might be a little weird, like when I get like LinkedIn emails from like recruiters and stuff. I'm like, how'd you know my name? And it's because they're on LinkedIn, but like it always looks kind of weird, and I want to like dig into it.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, and companies want to be very careful. At least the companies I've talked to, they're very careful, and that was one of the first concerns they have about personalization, right? Is it going to lead to a pushback, right? If we make it more obvious and if we use more of it. So that was definitely one of the concerns going in. At the same time, we can see its impact. So qualitative research, so there is this difference between what you get from qualitative research on personalization versus what you see in the data, right? So the data that we saw over here, we didn't see anything at the margin, right? So maybe people who are getting creeped out are always, inframarginal. So they were never going to respond either ways. But they're not, at least in the data that we have, they're not big enough in number to sway the spam filters in a way that they would then start to qualify every email from the company as spam. So the impact of that thought process is not visible in the outcome measures that these companies are looking at. If you look at qualitative research, you do see a sizable chunk of people who would voice that concern. But what we don't see in qualitative research is whether those people are among those 1% who are going to respond, whether they are among those 5% who are going to open regardless. So where that population lies is a big unknown. Another point related to what you're saying, Rob, is if you look at other survey-based data, and after the first experiment, all these questions, these are great questions. We were thinking about them as well. The effect seemed, too big. Is it going to replicate? How is it going to replicate in all these questions? And about privacy, which could vary across markets. We looked at survey data. So 49% of people in surveys say that they are actually open to getting these personalized recommendations from marketers. So where are those 49%? Where are the other people who have a bigger discount? What is relevant for businesses and for in the short and the long run, and all these questions that to answer those questions we need studies with outcome measures and with replications, with repetitions and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? So actually, I have a quick comment related to kind of Phil mentioned at the beginning. I wonder, does the company have any way to figure out if the email campaign, the email message was sent to the spam folder? Is there some sort of technology we can actually detect that? That would be interesting.
The companies that I'm working with, so they do track that with the proxy, which is whether emails are being opened.
Yeah.
So the prior is that if the email is more likely to go to spam, or if a particular version of the email is more likely to go to spam, then you should expect that the opens would change. The pixel won't get fired, and that's basically
okay, I got it. Okay,
what they look at.
Okay, and thank you so much